why Biden's emergency powers could be truly frightening. In caps and quotes, his emergency powers. Glenn warned you about PEADs, Presidential Emergency Action Documents, over a month ago, but now the New York Times seems to finally caught on. Times recently published a report about now declassified emergency powers George W. Bush held while in office. You mean after 9/11? Oh my God. It's a power grab. It's all shit that Trump could have done, but suddenly, luckily, he was either too stupid to use them because he didn't know he had them, or it just was ignorant of them, or they don't actually pose the threat the way you think.
Remember?
Oh, God. Remember George W. Bush and how, you mean the Republican president who took us to war in Iraq for no fucking reason?
So, remember, Stu, when...
Jesus Christ.
I talked to you about 4 weeks ago about PEADs, and neither of us had ever heard of it.
And what's it, PEADs?
It was Presidential...
Emergency Action Documents.
Emergency Action Directives. Okay. And we had not even heard of it at the time.
Yeah.
The New York Times reports today, until now, public knowledge of what the government put into...
Okay, the reason this is in the news because of something that was released, and the New York Times wrote a story about it, and this asshole saw it someplace, and now he thinks he's discovered something. I fucking love how Glenn Beck reads something in the corporate media that he rails against. The liberal media. He reads a story in the liberal media, and then all of a sudden, you know what I found out? Fuck off.
Classified presidential...
You thought Glenn was wearing a bib? No, I think this is, what do you think this is? Middle school, uninvited to the dance, Glenn Beck action figure?
Directives, which invoke emergency and wartime powers.
Right.
Granted by Congress and...
Granted by Congress as as representatives of the voters because of emergencies that we deal with. Oh, you mean democratically created powers?
Otherwise claimed by presidents have been limited to declassified descriptions of those developed in the early Cold War. In that era, they included steps like imposing martial law, rounding up people deemed dangerous, and censoring news from abroad.
From abroad.
What could possibly go wrong?
By the way, I think if you allowed propaganda to get in the way it kind of gets in now, without somebody saying, by the way, this is Russian propaganda, sites like yours, The Blaze and the Daily Caller and the Daily Wire, can continue to bullshit their viewers using Russian talking points as if it's actual news. No, it's not an ascot. He's just wearing a white T-shirt underneath.
Now, this was... If
it's not attached to the shirt, which it might be.
First started by Eisenhower in the atomic...
So it's an emergency is what you're saying. So this is... How do I just hear about this now? Of course we have these fucking powers during the Cold War, asshole. We had Russians running around stealing nuclear secrets in the goddamn country.
Age, when we were afraid of nuclear weapons, if we would go...
Yeah, we're not afraid of those anymore. Thank God.
Go to a nuclear war.
Oh, I forgot to reset. Good point. You're watching House Sparks Mega Worldwide, where I deal with these long-form clips. I don't just cut little pieces out and tell you somebody said something that they said something when they're saying something. I show you the whole thing and react to it.
There wouldn't be enough time for them to sit around, the cabinet and go, okay, so what do we do? They pushed a button and everything had to go. So they would make these direct...
Yes, they had a martial law button and they had a round 'em up button. And get the fuck out of here.
Directives beforehand. And they would say, this is for an emergency in case of a nuclear war. And the president would sign it. And then it would be held. So you couldn't, Congress doesn't have a right to look at these things because they're not actually enforced. It's kind of like our advice until the emergency happens, and then it becomes...
Right, because it's an emergency response. And notice how until Biden was in office, this motherfucker didn't care about any of these things.
The law of the land.
How does it become the law of the land? What process gives...
He just told you. Congress gave the administration these powers specifically, but as a mandate from the people due to a threat that's in reality. That you don't have a one-to-one vote on every fucking thing. We don't micromanage the administration, or Trump would have never run for fucking office, actually.
It's the president the right to...
Emergency orders.
What the fuck? Like he's saying something. Both of you jackasses. He just told you.
If there's an emergency.
Right. Of which, thank God emergencies don't happen. I don't even know why we even think about this.
The president has all kinds of powers.
Oh, House Parks perk hailing, mass shooter in Tulsa, Oklahoma, shooter's dead. Oy. So, for the record, I'm now upset about the Uvalde shooting. I'm not politicizing the one that just happened in Tulsa.
Now, I can't think of an emergency that might be on the horizon. Sure, there's the economic emergency that could happen.
What defined as what?
There's the energy shortage that might happen.
Again, are we just ratcheting up paranoia? Is that what the goal is here? He's just lazy.
There's a lawlessness emergency on the streets that could happen.
Biden could excuse student loan debt now. No, he could not, long shot, Louis. That's a lie. He cannot. He could not. If the president had that ability, then the president could also wipe out all debt held by defense contractors. It's silly. It's not true. It's a lie. It's nonsense. It's goofy. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. You cannot. You can't. It's impossible. Stop it. Other than that, I have no opinion.
But other
I think
than that, can you think of anything?
No.
There's the monkeypox emergency. I left that one out. There's the cheating at an election one that, would be really. There's the war emergency action that could be declared, but.
The war emergency action that could be declared. No, it can't. You have to declare war on a fucking country, you dummy. None of this is true. None of the stuff that he listed is true. Even if monkeypox went COVID, went totally across the entire country, first of all, you'd have people clamoring for you to do something quickly. And if you tried to use that power on something that was minor, you'd get drummed out of office.
Other than that, again, nothing to see here. So,
again, just paranoid bullshit.
It's not been clear what the modern directives have been. Known presidential emergency action documents, those are called PADs. They've never been made public or shown to Congress, but the New York Times has been looking into George W. Bush. Now, why would you stop there? I think we all know why.
Because of time passage? Because they dealt with something 20 fucking years ago, specifically, and that is not an ongoing threat like Al-Qaeda?
Am I right?
No, you're not. This is goofy.
Several of the files provided to the New York Times by the Brennan Center for Justice shows that the Bush-era effort partly focused on a law that permits the president to take over or shut down communications networks in wartime. Remember that one? And people like your local radio hosts and your hosts on talk radio said, hey, for the first time in my career, the emergency broadcast system is being taken out of our hands.
Yes, yeah, because we're in the 2000s now instead of 1964.
Emergency broadcast system used to be is the White House would alert the radio stations. And I think it was.
Yeah, and a bunch of the radio stations don't have fucking people working at them anymore. Have you been, all right, I've done a shit ton of radio in my life as a touring stand-up comedian, and I'm sure Glenn is familiar with some of these facilities, but even Rush Limbaugh's own fucking station, where I went and did morning radio one of the times, it's a giant, like, iHeart kind of a building. It's a big office building with no fucking people in it. Unless there's somebody on that particular station live, like their morning or drive time, and a lot of times they borrow them from other fucking stations and just pipe them in. Nobody is there to flip the fucking emergency broadcast switch anymore. And a lot of the stations, when they're bought out by these giant conglomerates, don't want to even do that fucking work. Of course they hand it over. It's a test of the emergency broadcast system. Why would you want a relay that has to be flipped by a human switch when nothing else in the station has to? Yes, Jan Morgan. Biden speaks May 17th, the White House, Rose Garden. His administration firming up plans to cancel $10,000 in student debt. Right. That's the most he can do. He cannot get rid of the rest of it. That's all basically interest, and then using discretionary funds from the COVID relief to help people who are behind on it. That's it.
WMAL in Washington would get the first alert. And then
if they weren't blown to pieces,
WMAL would hear the tones.
If nobody there was dead.
And they would say, this is a test or this is an emergency.
And by that time, it would be too late.
If it was an emergency.
And they weren't already dead.
They'd pass it on to another station. And
that station, if everybody there wasn't dead from whatever the fucking emergency was, Jesus Christ, this is stupid.
That station would pass it on. Now, it would take like an hour to get all the way across the country.
Yeah, isn't that funny? And it's weird that in modern society, when you can fucking tweet and it's everywhere that allows Twitter on the globe in an instant, that the government has to wait until a station in fucking eastern fucking Idaho passes it on before Minneapolis finds out there's a fucking emergency.
To the west. So the west had already been wiped out, okay? But it's Seattle. Who cares? Anyway, so
that was their opinion at the time. It was like,
yeah.
No.
I remember, because I worked in Seattle, and I remember doing those tests going, if it's real, we're all dead anyway. So.
See, that again, he's making the exact fucking point why you would automate it.
Oh. Hey, everybody in Seattle, you've got about 90 seconds to prepare. God,
now he's lost track of his fucking point. He shot his own point, and look at the fade. Look at what's happening to his fucking face. Look at this shit. Ugh, God. Watch. He's like, yeah, it'd be too late. Now, where was I? Oh, yeah. I was talking about how that's a bad idea that the government can now flip a switch.
You've got about 90 seconds to prepare. So that's the way the test used to work.
Uh-huh. Or not work.
Then back in the George Bush era, they changed it. He now can push a button in the Oval Office or wherever. And it immediately overrides all signals. So
because it's the emergency broadcasting. And by the way, it does not override all signals. Not all cable systems would be aligned to it. Not anything broadcast, which is the airwaves. Companies rent that from the people, from the government, specifically the taxpayer. You get to use those bandwidths. You get a license to use those bandwidths. And because in theory, you're creating a common good, or you're helping commerce, or you just have a fucking business, but you're renting that from the people. And we can pull it back temporarily to tell everybody if fucking asteroids are headed for the planet.
Oh, he's on television and every radio station. There is no other information that is coming out except from the information from the White House.
Didn't this
bullshit? Especially now, because we have social media all over the place, and you'll see a thing come up on your fucking watch, followed immediately by whatever the fuck you were doing before.
Happened in Austin Powers?
No.
Wasn't that his plan where he could just press a button and would overtake all broadcast?
No.
Probably.
No, not probably.
Okay.
probably.
Just want to make sure.
I didn't see it, but yeah, we're probably taking directives from Austin Powers. And that's probably the thing that will
Dr.
make
Evil,
the
actually.
most sense all day to you. So
Yes, that's true. Of all things, the plot point from a movie that didn't actually exist will make way more sense than anything you can hear from fucking Glenn and Stu.
apparently, lawmakers cannot interfere with these.
Right. Why would you want Rand Paul to vote on whether or not we could get an emergency message from the White House?
Another file from the summer of 2008 mentioned that the Justice Department lawyers were revising an unidentified draft order in light of recent Supreme Court opinions. The memo doesn't specify the ruling, but the court had just issued the landmark decision on topics that relate to government actions in an emergency, one about gun rights in the United States, and another about the rights of Guantanamo detainees in court hearings. Well, that could be any one of those or all of those.
All right. Well, thanks for that clarity. Jesus Christ, this is stupid.
Now, here's the thing.
Yeah, here's the thing. Okay, finally, there's a thing. There's a thing at the end of this.
We got these through
The New York Times.
FOIA. But
No, you didn't. You didn't get shit through FOIA. The New York Times got them from somebody else who got them through FOIA.
we didn't FOIA the government.
Jesus.
We FOIA'd the
You didn't FOIA fucking anybody, dum-dum. You're reading the New York Times.
George W. Bush library.
No, you didn't.
Now, no one knows why they didn't FOIA the Obama administration's records.
Who says they didn't? They also didn't get anything from these.
Other than he doesn't have a library and nobody's building one yet because graft? I mean, they're looking for the right place.
What? Dude, who gives a fuck?
So we don't.
This is almost over. I don't even know what the fuck he's talking about. So you can't. That's why. So Obama doesn't have a library, so people can't FOIA top secret documents that wouldn't even be kept there.
know what happened with the PADs. They are still enforceable if the president would say, hey, you know, nuclear launch, what do you have? And it's the Eisenhower one. He could still
Bullshit.
have that. We don't know what's in effect and what's not in effect.
Oh my God. The new presidents come in, they have to establish direct threat based ones. You're not just running on the fucking Eisenhower ones. If you were, you'd be launching missiles at places where there weren't even targets anymore. This is fucking stupid.
Many of them are classified. In fact, all of them are classified.
Yes, all of them are classified because they're not actually meant to be used. And part of them, if you knew what was in them, our enemies could tell what our response was going to be before we actually responded and tailor their attack to thwart it.
Except for this group that has just been released. Apparently, they had, I'm looking for it here.
Yeah, get to it quickly. It's not like you're boring or anything. Fuck me.
Good
Lord, this is terrible radio.
I think 9,000 pages were not released
Right. Because they have to do with fucking everything.
because they're still classified.
Gee, why would they be classified, Glenn? It's not like we have any enemies in the world anymore. It's not like the Chinese don't have a plan to attack Taiwan or release some sort of pathogen, or the Russians don't have decided about whether or not they're going to use nukes anytime soon. I don't know why we don't just fucking print everything that goes on in our government. I don't know why you don't just take the roof off the CIA so everybody can see what's going on inside it from fucking space.
And I think they released 2,000 pages. So
Did they or didn't they? You read the article.
there's another 9, but I'm sure
But you're sure of what? Jesus Christ.
there's almost nothing on those other 9 that remain.
Probably everything's fine.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. What a waste of fucking time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. Stu, Rein him in.
It's the best way to always assume. We've learned that lately. Just assume everything's going to be fine.
Isn't that frightening?
No, it's not. It's incredibly fucking normal.
Yeah.
It's truly frightening.
No, it isn't. It's only frightening because you're a dipshit. Oh my God. You're watching House Sparks Mega Worldwide. I have to say, the like infantile, I mean, the duplicitous nature of it is one thing. Because you have to look at Glenn and these assholes. They didn't give a rat fuck that Trump had these very same things when he was in office. But all of a sudden, because it's Biden, it's nefarious. And Biden might launch shit that Eisenhower wrote down. And that's the fucking fantasy we live in right now. Get out of here. So lazy. Holy shit.